let's review everything you need to know for Unit 2 of AP World History Modern. Before we get going, 3 things. First thing, this is Unit 2, Networks of Exchange. Therefore, if you're just finding this video and haven't watched Unit 1, The Global Tapestry, I highly recommend. Second thing, this is a review video. I'm not explaining every single detail here. That's what your class is for. This video is to review all of that information your teacher threw at you over the past few weeks and arrange it into one digestible video so that you can pass your test and get a 5 on the exam in May. Third thing, you think I didn't come here bearing gifts? Boom, a whole study guide designed just for you. Non-press, what if I told you I already filled out the whole thing? Yeah, an answer key, and it's all for free. You're welcome. You can download it from the link in the description from the Ultimate Review Packet. You veterans of the series know what went down in the last video reviewing Unit 1. Spoiler, Unit 1 was basically a world tour region by region of the major players in world history from 1200 to 1450. Well, Unit 2, Networks of Exchange, focuses on how all of that stuff from Unit 1 is connected. Simply put, it's trade routes and Mongols. But that doesn't mean it's simple. Check out this map I made for the entire unit, right? That's a whole mess of interconnectivity. So let's review Unit 2. First thing to remember, this is the exact same time period, 1200 to 1450, as the first unit. Remember, the course is divided into 4 quarters of time, so everything you learned in Unit 1 is happening simultaneously with what you learned in Unit 2. Units 3 and 4 will time jump ahead, but for now we're staying here in 1200 to 1450. The macro view of this unit is that it's 3 trade routes, the Mongol Empire, and the effects of all this interconnectivity. That's the Silk Road, the Indian Ocean trade, and the Trans-Saharan trade. Now, all 3 of these made a cameo in Unit 1, the Global Tapestry, but there's an added bonus here. There are 2 sections devoted to just the effects of this trade. One on the cultural effects, the other on the environmental effects. Let's start with the granddaddy of them all. The Silk Road. The Silk Road has a serious marketing team working for it. World history teachers love it. It's got that cool name, Silk Road. I mean, come on, the other trade routes are literally just a description of the area they cover, not the Silk Road. You almost feel like you're there just from saying, say, Silk Road, right? Can't buy that kind of PR. Let's take a look at this thing. Here's a map. The Silk Road spans from East Asia to Dar al-Islam. It began well before 1200, around 100 BCE, when the Han Chinese were traveling west in an attempt to gain allies in their fight against the Xiongnu. Why even bring up the Xiongnu? Guess what the Xiongnu are? That's right. They're Turks. Hashtag Global Tapestry. Hashtag Dar al-Islam. Hashtag It's Turk Time. Anyways, as they expanded to the west, they just kept going and trading and joining up with existing or ancient trade routes and connected those routes back to downtown Earth, a place I like to call China. Which brings me to a quick tangent. I always say Silk Road, but I'm from South Carolina and pronunciations are not my strong suit. It's not the Silk Road, it's the Silk Roads, plural. It's not just one massive highway system. The United States isn't connected by one highway, it's a whole network. Think of the Silk Roads like a series of highways that were linked and connected the wealthiest, most advanced places on the planet between 1200 and 1450. So I'll try and be better. Silk Roads, Silk Roads, Silk Roads. Periodization rears its head along the Silk Road. If you don't know Unit 1, the Global Tapestry here, you're gonna have a bad time. Look back at the map. The map shows everything that is either explicitly or implicitly mentioned by the College Board. But let's get meta. Look through the map. Look through the map to see the Unit 1 map. Because underneath these cities and travelers and exchanges lie the regions, empires, and sultanates of Unit 1, the Global Tapestry. These things are all interconnected, which is the point of Unit 2. But when you look at any map of the Silk Roads, you're going to start to see little dots pop up along the way. These are trade cities. These cities are located all along the Silk Roads, where trade in places like caravanserais are the most beneficial. This brings us to the most important vocab word for the Silk Roads, even though they aren't just along the Silk Roads. And that's the caravanserai. Break that word down. Caravans are just groups of merchants traveling together for safety. That's easy. But sarai is a tough one. Sarai is Persian for palace. Think of it more of a caravan fortress. Wait, what's the Persian word for fortress?
Khalid.
Khalid. Khalid? Wait, caravan Khalid? That's way better. All right, can we all agree to just from now on call it Caravan Khalid from now on? Caravan Khalid. Really missed an opportunity there. Serious, Caravan Khalid sounds better. Caravan Khalid's just better. Sarai. Go back. So these were often around major trade cities. And when it comes to the Silk Road, there are a ton of trade cities. But you only need to know one. My jam, Samarkand. Check the map. It's in modern-day Uzbekistan. It's in Central Asia, which is one of the lesser-used regions in AP World History. It's right in the middle of Europe, Persia, and East Asia. Location, location, location. Marco Polo and Ibn Battuta were not the norm. You would travel to trade cities like Samarkand or Kashgar and get Chinese silk or porcelain. Ain't nobody walking from London to Beijing. But you could go from Constantinople to Samarkand. But where will you keep your super valuable luxury items you traded for? Boom, check out this caravan kallet. Or caravanserai. Your teacher probably is not going to take caravan kallet, even though it is objectively a superior term. So maybe go with caravanserai. The rest of what you need to know about the Silk Road is what's being traded and how it's traded. So here focus on luxury goods like silk and porcelain from China, but maybe more importantly to the emerging interregional economy, paper, money. Think of the mental jump you have to make to go from heavy metal coins of rare metals representing value to paper with something written on it. You farm all year, all that champa rice, and harvested it too. Then you give it to me, and I give you a paper with some weird markings on it. Historically, you're probably illiterate, so that's a tough sell. But for merchants, paper is light. Paper is backed by banks that hold those precious metals. Paper is backed by banks that hold those precious metals, so you don't have to walk to Samarkand with ropes and ropes of heavy metal coins. Last thing, China isn't just about luxury goods. They are starting to produce copious amounts of iron and steel. Now, this isn't Unit 5 Industrial Revolution levels, but they are doing it better than anyone else. Keeping up with that study guide, by the way. Pause here if you need to and give it a shot. Next trade route, the Indian Ocean Exchange. The map here shows you the regions of East Africa, Dar al-Islam, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and East Asia all being nautically connected using this trade. It's the same thing as the Silk Roads, just a maritime version. Luxury goods and technologies are being exchanged. With this kind of trade, you're going to see new trade cities emerge. Again, the College Board doesn't name any one here, but go with Malacca. It's like Samarkand. It's a prime location along the trade route, but instead of being in the middle of the Silk Roads, it's in the middle of the Malacca Strait, which is the midway point between Pacific Oceans and Indian Oceans. One thing to focus on the Indian Ocean, technology. Better boat designs featuring lateen sails and stronger hull designs. Or directional technology like the compass or the astrolabe, vastly improved navigation. More reliable navigation leads to more reliable trade, which made the Indian Ocean trade the maritime trade network until the second period of AP world history, 1450 to 1750. The Indian Ocean Trade Network does have its own vocab word to focus on here. So the Silk Roads had caravanserais, or here the term to know is diaspora or diaspora. This one is simple. People are living away from their homeland. Like, I'm from South Carolina, but I live all the way up here in Virginia. Technically, I'm in diaspora, but that's not really what the word means. Generally, people have moved in large numbers, either by force, like the Jews living outside of their Holy Land, or, as in the case here, they've moved to different parts of the Indian Ocean trade route for economic benefit. So it's not just people moved. They're either in exile or working to make more money for their families or following the trade route. Now, when this happens, people living in diaspora, they often live in and amongst larger groups of indigenous people. Like here in Northern Virginia, people don't nearly say y'all enough. I mean, it's a perfect word. Think of all the time I've saved through all of my years just by saying y'all. It's literally seconds. Well, I've been trying to introduce that up here in Virginia. All along the Indian Ocean trade networks, language, religion, beliefs, festivals, foods, all of that spread when Chinese immigrants moved to Malaysia or when the Malay people moved to India. Arguably the biggest and most influential group living in diaspora along the Indian Ocean trade network were the Arabs, Persians, and other Muslims who helped to spread Islam around the Indian Ocean. The 4 largest Islamic populations on Earth today are all along the Indian Ocean. First, Pakistan. Second, Indonesia. Third, India. 4, Bangladesh. 5 is Nigeria, which is nowhere near this. Oh, last thing, the Silk Roads were just a bunch of roads. People know when it's gonna snow or when the rainy season is. Big deal. But when you're out in the ocean, specifically the Indian Ocean, you have to understand the monsoon winds. They switch directions seasonally, and if you don't understand these, you don't stand a chance. Don't forget about the study guide. If you sit there and stare at this video, hi, how are you? If you're staring at me, in a few minutes, you're not going to remember anything. Get stuck. Don't worry about it. I made an answer key for you. Check mine versus yours and go from there. The third and final trade route to focus on here, the Trans-Saharan trade route. This is low-key my favorite. Why? It's super easy to understand, and it's drastically different than the other two. Do not overlook what all these trade routes are for. So people are going to go from one place to another place to trade what they have for what they want. So what do you want from Sub-Saharan Africa? Sub-Saharan Africa, by the way, is the part of Africa south of the Sahara Desert. But what do they want? 2 things: salt and gold. How do I know they want it? They literally tie themselves to a giant camel and cross the largest desert on the planet to get access to it. And just like the other trade routes, they use new technologies, compasses and astrolabes for direction. Camel saddles change the game by increasing the amount that a camel could carry. You're walking across a gigantic desert. The more you can bring back in one trip, the better. Also, it sounds basic, but caravans, yeah, groups. they help. You know the point when every horror movie goes bad when they decide to split up? Yeah, don't do that. Stick together. It deters bandits, and you're less likely to get lost. And hell, maybe you can even afford a guide. So pull up with your crew, the caravan. This gets redundant, but with great trade comes transfers of technology and ideas. I already mentioned the compass, but the big deal here is Islam. As we mentioned back in Unit 1, the Global Tapestry, that means you are dealing with the Empire of Mali. Mali quickly came to dominate trade in the region and converted in large numbers to Islam. Remember that list a minute ago? The nation of Mali today is the 21st largest Islamic population on Earth. Need another trade city? Try Timbuktu. I like to think of it as a coastal city. It's not. It's in the middle of Africa, but it's on the coast of the Sahara. Caravans would arrive like ships and dock at Timbuktu, which became a center of trade and learning. So that's 3 trade cities I mentioned. Samarkand on the Silk Roads, Malacca in the Indian Ocean Trade Network, and Timbuktu in the Trans-Saharan trade. Mali is also super famous for architecture like this, and this. Some of these, specifically this one, was actually built by a Muslim from the Cordoba Caliphate in modern-day Spain, who the Emperor Mansa had come to Timbuktu and build these magnificent buildings. Which Mansa did that? You know it was Mansa Musa. What a legend. This guy's Hajj, or pilgrimage to Mecca, is easily the most historically famous. He's even on the 1375 Catalan Atlas, holding gold like a boss. All that's left, the consequences of all this trade. So that's pretty simple. We've already mentioned most of this stuff, so I'll be brief here. Religion spread. Buddhism around Asia, Islam around Asia and Africa, technology spread, compasses, paper, and gunpowder from China to the rest of Afro-Eurasia, astrolabes and algebra from Dar es-Salaam. Also, you should know the travelers. The most famous is Marco Polo, but the most prolific was Ibn Battuta. Here's a map of all of that stuff. Ibn Battuta basically traveled all the trade routes. The environmental consequences were 2 major things: food and disease. The disease to know here is the bubonic plague. That thing was a problem for all of Afro-Eurasia in this period. Don't think that it was only a European thing. It devastated all 3 connected continents in this period. And not just once. This thing came back like every few years. The other environmental consequence was the spread of foods, the most consequential of which was sugar. And not just because it's like 90% of your diet. Remember later that I mentioned sugar when we get to Unit 4 after 1492. It's one of the main drivers of the transatlantic slave trade. But in this period, it's making its way from Oceania and Southeast Asia to Afro-Eurasia. Oh, and bananas. They'll play a major role in Unit 6, so you definitely won't remember this then, but bananas are following these trade routes as well. I feel like I'm forgetting something here. Did the trade routes? Diaspora, as some people say. I improved on the historical word, #CaravanKellen. I mentioned bananas and sugar are going to be a big deal later on. I mentioned the study guide. You're welcome, by the way, for making those. Oh, yeah. The Mongols. I go ham on the Mongols in class. It's kind of what history teachers do. Here's the deal with the Mongols. You need to see them in Unit 2. Not a big historical breakdown of everything Mongols. Think of them as the ultimate worst-case scenario for the people living in Afro-Eurasia. We just set up all these sweet trade routes and everyone's having a great time enjoying the ease of movement that these routes afford you. Plus all the cool stuff that you're trading. I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? What if an unstoppable military featuring some of the greatest military strategists in history on the fastest possible vehicle known to mankind, who happen to be some of the greatest marksmen in the history of the planet, use these trade routes to build the largest empire in history? Yeah, that's pretty much the Mongols. Badasses? Yes. Destructive? Of course. But they also served as a major catalyst for a ton of different transfers of cultures and ideas and technologies. They helped spread ideas like numbers. Yeah, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those spread from India to Dar al-Islam and then on into Europe. Or all those medicines from East Asia and Dar al-Islam in Unit 1. Those were also spread to Europe. So let's all agree how nasty and terrible they were. They killed tens of millions of people. They killed so many people, it lowered the global temperature. Think of how many people you have to murder to affect the climate. Yeah, the Mongols are that destructive. So they take over and serve as almost a de facto police force along the Silk Roads. Some weak little bandit is not going to want to cross even one Mongol. You do have to know one word for the Mongols: Khanate. Basically, after Genghis Khan died, the empires broke into Khanates. A Khanate is a massive region of Asia that was ruled by a descendant of Genghis Khan. See, Unit 2 is literally just a focus on how the regions of the world from 1200 to 1450 are interconnected by trade routes and Mongols. Did you finish the study guide? No? You have some spots that need some work. No worries. The same place you found the study guide is the key to the study guide. Look at my key to help you out. Let's review the review. Know the trade routes: Silk Roads, Indian Ocean, and Trans-Saharan. Know the consequences: the technology, the travelers, the sugar, the bananas, the plagues. Know the Mongols, but not just arrows and horses, but like medicine and numbers. And that is Unit 2, Networks of Exchange. Pair Units 1 and Unit 2 together, and you get everything you need to know between 1200 and 1450. The first 2 units are less represented than the next 4 units, but you now have a foundation to get into the real of this course. Units 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the heavy hitters. Stick with me. You should be all right. I got 20 years in the game. Plus, there's a ton of videos over on my channel besides these reviews that can help you out. Also, I got all kinds of stuff over in the Ultimate Review packet to help you out. I've got a practice sheet for the AP World Skill of Comparison that they really focus on for Unit 2. There's also a full practice exam, and there are all kinds of things I've created just to help you out. So good luck on that Unit 2 exam, and more importantly, on the AP World History exam this May.